Welcome to the Quick Corners Book Corner. Today I'll be joined by Heather, who's been in the Quick Corner before. Let's go there and find out more about her and her book. Her bio will be right after this. Welcome back to the Quick Corners Book Corner, Heather.
Thank you, Etta, very much. It's lovely to be back.
Yes, I'm glad that we could make this happen. So I hear from reliable sources that you have a new book.
That's right. That's right. It's called The Many Faces of Grief, Finding Pathways to Healing.
Ooh.
And it started actually through the death of my mum a couple of years ago. And in one sense, I started writing it after her death. And for me, it was a bit of a therapeutic engagement to try and help me process what was going on inside of me. But I realized that grief is not only a response to loss of a person that you love, but it involves a lot of other scenarios, like COVID, the grief that some people experience in COVID, or it could be a miscarriage or a pregnancy loss. It could be moving home.
Going somewhere that's not familiar.
Yes, that's right. It could be the experience of incarceration, going to jail.
Yes, for some people, yes.
Yeah, it could be the grief involved in disability or illness.
Yes.
So a lot of the book relates to many of those scenarios. And it's not just describing those, but it's trying to find a way through them as you process your sadness or your frustration or whatever.
Yes. Interesting. It's nice to hear that you've widened that conversation beyond the loss of a loved one, even though, you know, the loss of a loved one is a real big thing. I mean, I lost my mom over 30 years ago, and I still have those moments of grief. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think they ever go away. That I think there are certain triggers that happen in your life. It might have been a memory of a place that you both went to, or a precious object that you shared or something, and then quite unexpectedly the tears will flow. I mean, I was talking to a widow last Christmas, and she was saying it's 18 years since my husband died, and yet at Christmas time I'm still full of floods of tears thinking of him. And because I had only been 1 year bereaved, we cried together. And so that was a lovely moment, really, that we don't have to be necessarily brave with each other, but we can connect with our mutual experience.
That's so beautifully said. I like the fact that you said you cried together, because that
Yes,
just brings the humanity in us. And
yes,
yeah, and thinking about grief, a lot of times people want to box it, but everyone experiences grief differently.
absolutely. And a lot depends on how you've been brought up to process grief.
Yes.
For some people, it's to say, oh, big boys don't cry, or it could be keep busy. It could
Yes.
be, all sorts of things.
Well, the thing about grief too is too many times people grieve because they've not been allowed to grieve.
Absolutely. Um, uh, and you need somehow in your own particular way to find a process that works for you. But sometimes, particularly after you've lost someone, you're so busy organizing funerals,
Yes.
or organizing estate planning, or that sort of thing, that you don't have time to grieve at the moment that you feel like escaping from the world.
Yeah.
And somehow you've got to allow your permission later on to say, hey, I'm feeling sad, but I can't process now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a week or so I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so nicely put. Yes. I think, to your points, we need to give ourselves permission to grieve.
Yes.
It's not a
Yeah.
sin.
No, absolutely not. And part of the book mentions a lot of examples in the Bible where grief is part of ordinary life.
Yeah.
And some of the Psalms, for example,
Yes.
the psalmist lets it fly sometimes. And if you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, that's full of vanity, vanity, all is vanity,
Yes.
and despair.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember after my mum died, I was feeling quite as if life was useless at that point. And when I read parts of Ecclesiastes, it kind of validated my feelings, that it's okay
Yeah.
to feel those feelings and to journey through them and figure out, well, what are you learning from that?
Nice.
Mhm.
It's good to hear that that's part of, the contents of your book. Can you read something
Yes.
from your book to us, please?
Yes. I'll read something about the grief of disability.
Okay.
I have a physical disability. I have cerebral palsy, and I spend most of my time in a wheelchair. And some of the griefs I still experience in this kind of life is a yearning for spontaneity in my activities. Instead of planning to the nth degree around care support, transport, and physical access, and whether I can physically manage the program in which I want to be involved. And that's one grief. Number two grief is experiencing a lack of understanding or condescending attitudes amongst some members of the able-bodied population. A third grief is noticing declined function over time, including tiring of the physical struggle.
Mm.
And the fourth grief that I feel, and many other people feel, is being at the mercy of other people's timetables.
Yeah.
I am blessed with many people who visit my home to support my lifestyle, but I'm learning to be more patient and flexible regarding timing.
Mm.
Then I'll go on and talk about in this particular grief, the ways that I find healing in the present, and having a good health and medical team behind me is essential.
Yes.
Being surrounded by a supportive network of family and friends is a godsend.
Definitely.
Yes. Cultivating a sense of thankfulness for blessings, great and small, and they keep
Yes.
me balanced.
That's true.
Deepening my connection with carers, finding ways to contribute to others, including activities like visiting aged people. Sometimes
That's beautiful.
I have an aged care facility that's right next door.
Okay.
Keeping my brain active by learning new skills like Zoom.
Oh, do you want to tell that story another day?
That's right. And appreciating the beauty of nature helps me regain my serenity. So those are some possibilities for healing in the grief of disability. But as I say, I've got many other examples of other kinds of grief.
Yeah.
Including giving up your child for adoption, or dealing with the grief of getting dementia and coping with the loss of your brain function, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I'm gonna ask,
Yes.
how much did this take out of you in writing this book? How much did it take out of you?
That's a very good question. Very good question. It took all of me. It took all of me, and there were times when, you know, particularly as I was talking about my mum and the situations there, it helped me to relive some of the sadness.
Okay.
But I also had a lot of help. For example, one of the griefs that I wrote about was PTSD. You know what the military people sometimes suffer after coming home from the army or whatever.
Yes.
And I got some of my friends to write sections for me about how they experience PTSD and how they go on the journey towards healing. I would hasten to add that I don't think anyone can say that we're totally healed in this life, but we can move towards healing.
Yeah.
We can move towards healing.
I like that. I like that because we definitely need to make progress. We can't stay stuck in our grief.
Yes, exactly. And even if it's inch by inch. Yes. Yeah. And having certain goals to work towards in a day or a week or even a year.
Yes.
That can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this sounds like a pretty intense book.
It is, there's a bit of humor in it as well.
Okay.
There's a bit of humor in it. Just people's reactions to your grieving as well, that they don't know what to say to you, but yeah, they're doing their darndest to be supportive. Yeah, but I hope it's not all gloom and doom, because there's another example that I use of someone who's been severely ill, and she loves swimming, and she often goes swimming and sees phosphorescent or luminescent creatures in the ocean, and that really instills in her a sense of awe,
Yes.
in the beauty of nature.
Yes.
So I hope to balance the tough things and, the positive things that people can experience, and the kindness of people that sometimes
That's true. Yeah.
you can see.
Okay, nice, nice. Yeah, for sure. We need balance in our lives. So a couple people may know people who are grieving, or just wants to know how to support people who are grieving. How can
Yes.
people get copies of your book?
The main way, I think, might be through Amazon, amazon.com, or amazon.com.au if you're in Australia. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I remember the first time you were in the Quick Corners Book Corner, the book you shared with us had two covers.
Yes.
For this, do we have just one cover? Can you show us what it looks like so we know when people are ordering, they know what to look out for? Okay.
Yeah, there's just one cover.
Okay.
And it's called The Many Faces of Grief.
Okay.
Pathways to Healing. And it's got a big orange butterfly on the front. There's a million reasons for the choice of the colour, in that the butterfly has to experience the darkness of the cocoon before joining a new life. But the other reason why I chose a butterfly was I remember sharing a love of butterflies with my mum. And whenever I see a flock of yellow butterflies, I think of my mum.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, you took my next question off me, because I was going to say beautiful cover. What was the inspiration? But I guess you've already started reading my mind, Heather. Started reading my mind.
We have ways of making you talk. Yes, and there is a story about the back cover. You can't see the images of the back cover very much, but it's got a picture very faintly,
yes,
of a mushroom,
okay,
that's covered by the decay of dead leaves. And to me, that was a symbol of life in the midst of death, and decay. So yeah,
nice, nice
so,
symbolisms.
yes,
Nice.
yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we'll put the information on how people can get copies of this book and your other books. Thank you for joining me in the Quick Corners Book Corner.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure, and to finally met up with you again.
Yes, likewise.
Okay.
Okay, well, you take care.
And you too.
I sure will.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. God bless you.
You too.
Many faces of grief. A lot of times we think about grief in one direction. Okay, I take that back. I sometimes think about grief in one dimension or one direction. But just listening to Heather and some of the examples she gave, definitely there are many phases of grief. And I like the fact that it's like, yes, it's something that goes down, but there's an upside to it. A book sounds like a good one to read. So we can support people who are grieving, or even help ourselves when we're grieving. Thanks again to Heather for joining me, and you for watching. See you in the Quick Corners Book Corner again sometime soon. I know.